without further ado, over to you, Dr. Bill Price. It's a pleasure to have you here.
Elena, thank you. I'm absolutely honored and I am humbled by the way that you introduced me. Thank you so much. There's so much respect and understanding and just authenticity of love that flows. So thank you for that. I feel the energy and it is amazing. And I'm going to plug into that as we carry on with the next 35 minutes or so in our masterclass. I'm excited, folks. I'm excited. So thank you for being here. I want to honor each and every one of you for, you showed up. So that's amazing. And not only did you show up, you are paying the cost and the price, because everything in life has a price tag to it. So you're paying the price of time. And for the next 35 minutes, we are going to invest in moments. So we're going to ride within those moments, within the now, and we're going to make the most of those moments because we are intentional. I've changed my diary and the way that I manage my diary because I specialize in neuroscience, and my speciality is to make neuroscience plain and simple. I always, when I'm working with leaders of leaders, I understand that when they read the term neuroscience, neurodiversity, neurobiology, neuropsychology, neuro, they tend to default in going, I don't know much about this neuro, because what's that? Is it the brain? Is it what? And then some people default into the mode, okay, so Nero is an emperor. And that's a fact, and you got it right, but he's died and gone. So we're not talking about Nero the emperor. We're talking about the inner world. And whenever I'm coaching, I've made a shift. As I used to be involved in counseling psychology as a psychologist, and I was working with the development of assessment instruments, etc. So I was schooled in personality formation, ego formation, and how behavioral science works within that. So if you could imagine an imaginary horizontal line. I was not good at mathematics. I'm a living testimony that there's life after mathematics, but I had to go and rewrite, I think twice, so that I could enter into the programs in university, because they're very academic orientated, and I wasn't really extremely academic. I was a 68% average person student. And I went to school mainly because my friends were going there. And that was my main reason. At 15, somebody asked me, who are you going to become? And I wanted to slap them, because how on earth do you ask a 15-year-old of who you're going to become? So I, like most other teenagers of the time, I was going, I want to be a fireman, or I want to be an astronaut, or I want to be a paramedic, or I want to be a teacher. My principal always used to say to me, Bill, it's very simple. When I look at your life, you've got three simple choices. You should either become an attorney, or you should become a priest, or you should become a comedian. And so I looked at that and I wondered, because I'm a choice-orientated person. And I said, so what would I be like if I was all three at the same time? And hence my multiple personality approach to life. But the equation on the bottom of the line, so the bottom part of the equation, if you're writing, and I do hope you are, if you could write the number 37 down as a percentage and just circle that. So under the line is 37%. You and I as coaches have been trained in mainly personality models, behavioral science models. Here and there we had a spattering of NLP, which took us into a little bit more of what they thought was neurology. But NLP is not neuroscience. NLP is actually not a science, strictly speaking. And some of us are schooled in that, and we're doing a darn good job with the 37%. We're getting 37% results. Education, the pedagogical models are also underneath that, under the line. And so we're approaching life with teaching and lecturing and coaching, and we're focusing on cognitive, and we've got cognitive behavior patterns, and we've got cognitive behavior coaching, etc., etc. And every new nuance pops up a new style or a nuance of coaching. And we've got all sorts of nuances. The other day I found a laughter coach. I'm going, all you need to do is laugh, is watch a good comedy, for goodness sake, or have your wife or husband tickle you. You don't need to pay for a coach to do that. So we're doing a great job under 37%. And I lived there for decades. And then after having gone through a crucible experience in my life as a leader, through quite a major burnout in my life, and took me 3 years to kind of recalculate, realign, and redefine. And I went into a whole multidisciplinary approach of desiring deeply a completeness and a satisfaction and holism in my own being. I discovered my soul that I've been shutting off. I'm no longer scared of shadows in my being, because I realized that that's part of my humanity, for goodness sake. And then I was introduced by one of my counselors, who happened to be a rabbi and a neuroscience psychologist, and he was the one who introduced me to the world of neuroscience. I asked him, why on earth do you want me to go and study neuroscience? I'm at that time 46 years of age. What must I do with another degree? And he said, it's not about a degree, it's about practical experience and practical connection with, he says, I can promise you two things. When you study neuroscience, you will stand on the precipice and you will look at the starry sky differently, and you will see the glories of the universe in our humanity and in our neurology. And you will discover not only the glories of the universe, but you'll also discover the amazingness of who we are in terms of being in who we are in terms of our essence. So I shifted, and I've had an amazing journey with neuroscience. It has impacted my life, and to such an extent, for the time that I've been using it now, it's integrated into my being, and I no longer am on the bottom 37%. I use that as foundation in my life as a coach, but I'm moving to the top 63%. I'm experiencing that added value with my clients, and so are they. And there I'm paying attention to neuro-wellness, which is very practical. So neuro-wellness is based on your sleep patterns, and you need to have 7 REM cycles in your sleep. Otherwise, you're going to just mess around with energy in your life and deplete, and you'll go into brain fog. Neuro-wellness is about nutrition, eating the right foods, drinking the right fluids and the right amounts. It's about in contact with your life, recreational contact, social contact, and it's about being vital and valid, and it's also about being authentic. So that's part of your neuro-wellness, because inside our neurology is an implant in our DNA, in our neurology, that we need to live an authentic life. Hence my burnout, because there was this big disconnect. The other part that's on the top of the 63% section above the line is neuro-learning, because below in 37 we make an assumption, and when you write the word assume down, ASSUME, and you put a stroke after A, you put a stroke after the second S, so you make an ass of you and me when you assume. But we in the 37% assume that the mind, we call it the brain, but the brain doesn't do anything. The brain is an organ. It's software. Inside of it is soft fatty tissue, dark gray, light gray fatty tissue, mostly made up of cholesterol and some fluid, but it houses over 80 billion neurons and 78 trillion neuron networks. So inside that fatty material, and it is that is making all of our decisions. So our neuro-learning education makes the mistake of going, if you sit in a classroom and you listen to a 45-minute lecture, then you've got it. And that's looking at the 37% below the line where we pay attention to it. You get brain overload because they forget that you're talking to the brain. The brain shows up to a coaching session. The neurology shows up everywhere, to a relationship, to family, to conversations, to coaching conversations. And in the 37%, we live in a bit of a delusion thinking that if we do this well below the line, and we apply these models with accuracy and passion and emotional intelligence, and that also falls under 37% because it is bracketed in its own right. But in our neurology, the brackets disappear. We are holistic. We're interconnected with everything. And so the learning brain only comes into operation when you intentionally coach it. So let me coach you now in your neuro-learning brain. I'm wondering, and I'd like you to write this down, what interested you about the subject for tonight, neuro and money and work and legitimacy? What interested you? And I'd like you just to write that down. You switch the learning brain on by coaching with intention. So you coach people with questions. And the first learning gate that'll open is the person has to discover interest in it. That's why I failed maths, because I never had any interest in it whatsoever. There was meaning depletion. I didn't have any idea around what maths was all about because I just was not interested and continued in that disinterest for most of my young adult life. The second question I'm going to ask you, which is opening up the second learning gate of 5 learning gates, is now that you're interested, what will it mean to you, my fellow amazing colleague? What would it mean to you if you could apply what you're going to learn in the next 15, 20 minutes? What are you going to learn? And you write down, it will mean that. And then I'd like you to just sit back in your chair, put your pen down, and just reflect on it for a moment. And I'm going to give you 30 seconds of reflection. And just breathe in and out. Trigger in your mind, I wonder. So what has just happened in our neurology, in our nervous systems, in our neuroplasticity, where thoughts are generated from a genesis perspective? So thoughts, feelings, emotions, etc., are not generated in personality and ego. Personality and ego have been socially created over the past, and that is put into our memory banks as a quick reflection for the neuroplasticity, which creates instant thought, instant questions, instant feelings and energy based on, and I'm not going to share all the Latin parts, but there's a place within our neurology, in our neuroplasticity, where we have predictability. So the huge intelligence of our consciousness and our intelligent consciousness, that creates a history and it goes into predictive validity. So it not only has a past, it's different to personality and ego, that only has a past. But predictive validity within our neurology is that it is in the now and it can predict in the future. In actual fact, 6 minutes beyond the now is the predictability of it. That's why you have your gut feelings. They don't come from emotion. Your gut feelings come from the predictive validity engine that switches on in our neuroplasticity. So while I'm speaking, there's agitation going on the inside of your mind, on the inside of your consciousness. There's agitation happening, and it's either negative or positive or neutral. But the agitation we can change, and we've done so intentionally by asking what's interesting, what's meaningful, and reflect on it. It's now shifted that to inquiry. You're going, this is interesting. So you are agitated, and that agitation is a vibrational force in your prefrontal cortex that switches on cognitive listening, and your amygdala begins to regulate it to go, I don't want to go to stress, and so I want to regulate my energy, and my energy is found in my central nervous system and my peripheral nervous system. My habit loops, the habits, etc., that you and I have got, which are in brain wiring, it's not in personality, they are in brain programs. So our habits and our rituals and our disciplines, that's where you'll find them. You won't find them in personality or in ego. They try and put them in ego models, but it's not the case. So those loops are created within our basal ganglia, the area in the brain that works with the formation of habits, etc. And so we come into the world and we ask the question, how can I be authentic as a coach? How can I be authentic in my business? How can I be authentic? And my authenticity is based on my true thoughts, my true questions, my true feelings, and my true energy, and the space in my neuroplasticity where it forms the beginning of what is known as decision architecture. It is not in personality and ego. Because the moment you go to personality and ego, in ego, your ego and my ego has developed a false true self. How about that? And you're so convinced that I'm authentic and I'm true, but it's all ego driven. How do I know? Well, just test it with someone challenging you and testing your triggers, and boom, your ego is going to move into protection. Then the other word is that I need to be legitimate. So the word legitimate brings up conjurings of credibility, ethics, and I'm graded in my inner value and grounded in my inner value and in my truth and in my inner realities, which are found in the world of agitation that creates the next thought, the next question, the next feeling, the next energy. I become authentic when I listen to those things, my first thought. So I'm wondering, would you automatically, with no waiting response, write down one thought that you're thinking right now? What's the one thought that you're thinking right now? And I'm connecting you through your prefrontal cortex. Your amygdala is regulated because we've sensed the safety of this moment. You're relaxed into this moment. And so that thought is not personality driven. I'd like you to look at the thought very carefully that you wrote down. It's not driven by personality, also not driven by ego, in actual fact. It was a Genesis thought. And the Genesis thought is where it is designed within our neuroplasticity. Neuroscience is the study of our central nervous system, peripheral nervous system, synaptic nervous system, parasympathetic nervous system, etc. So there's 5 or 6 of them. But the neuroplasticity is what happens within the bicycle tube of conscious energy, chemical energy, magnetic energy, fluids, creation capacity, huge amount of interconnectedness, intentionality, which animals do not have. So when I put into my life as a coach, money is about when we make money and our invoices are paid on time. It's nearly the end of the month. I hope you're not going into stress going, oh God, would my clients just please pay me on time? And so I've stopped asking. I just send little WhatsApps and I send them a little message and I go, in anticipation, thank you for expediting the investment via the invoice. And it works better for me than anyone else. So how you choose your words to work with people, and I coach people's intentionality. Come on, CEO, tell the CFO to pay the damn invoice. Get it over and done with. Stop the debate. Stop the debate. Let them just get on and do it. But like all things, there's this risk perception, and we as coaches have that all. We have the perception of, oh, I might be the risk. My internal world might be the risk. My thoughts are the risk. My emotions are the risk. My agitation could be the risk. But here's something I'd like to work with you right now. On a scale, and if you draw a horizontal line, on the left-hand side, I'd like you to write the word chase or words chasing money. That's the left-hand side of the horizontal line. On the right-hand side of the horizontal line is creating value. Where on that line are you? So if the middle of the line is 0, which is neutral, and that's a very silly place to be. The neurology doesn't know what to do with neutral. It goes back into default mode, lazy thinking mode. Your prefrontal cortex has to be alive with aliveness of making the next decision and awareness. So where are you on that line? We're doing an exercise of awareness now. I'm chasing money. That's the energy I'm chasing. The worst book that was ever written, and I hope when you read it, you forgot most of it, is The Purpose-Driven Life. Please don't give it to anybody. Just burn it. Because your neurology is never driven. The moment it goes into driven, your amygdala switches on and you go into stress mode, distress mode, and anxiety. Driven, driven, driven. Should, ought, could, should have, didn't. All of that is driven. You need to relax into being, what's in my future that's magnetizing me, that's pulling me? Now your neurology goes, okay, now I want to be in thrive mode. So we move into thrive mode the moment we cancel the push mode. And I've got to be aware of that. You can feel that energy. Oh my word, I'm being pushed under, I'm being overwhelmed. So where are you on chasing money versus creating value? Second contrast is inconsistent, and the right-hand side is reliability and centeredness. So am I inconsistent when it comes to money, or can I say that I'm quite centered in my philosophy of money, in my thinking of money, my value systems of money? And the acid test is, do I share that with calmness and strength of inner resolve based on I am worthy of my higher? I'm not a beggar on the street with a mug. I'm not a beggar in the world of social media begging for the next client. I'm in the world of social media saying, hear my voice. My voice is my brand. I've got a voice of authority. I've got a presence. I'm adding value. Then the next horizontal is on the left-hand side, overthinking, and on the right-hand side is clarity of action towards the desired solution, clarity of action towards the desired solution. Overthinking on the left-hand side, you can put in brackets there next to that, is brain fog. If you want to know what brain fog feels like, I went to visit a friend of mine in London, and it was like fog for whenever. And it was like you don't see too far ahead. In Africa, when a lioness is busy lying in the savannah and a 150 zebra run by, from a lioness's perspective, what do you think they see? Let me share with you. That's what they see. They see stripes running by, and it's the creator's amazing capacity to create camouflage, the best camouflage in the world. Confuses the lion, going, oh my God, where is this zebra that I want to have for lunch? So it must retreat a few steps, focus, and it takes its attention off the fog, and it goes to those two little zebras that are running slower than the rest. And he goes, there's the lunch for my pride. And it immediately engages with the chase. Neuroscience coaching helps the noise that are in executives' lives and in your life as a coach around money and business. There are 38 voices that I've researched with 2,000 executives and entrepreneurial business, 38, and they're all shouting for attention and whatever. And then amongst them all, so there's that happening, but amongst them all, there's something that is merging. You see it every now and again, and then you don't. You see it every now and again, you don't. But conscious awareness will say, let me push that aside, because this is called a signal. And this signal contains, because of predictability in my neurology, it contains the solution for my business. And it doesn't shout. It just stands up above the rest. Sadly, what executives then go and do over here is their to-do list, and over here is where everything happens. They then take the signal and they're going, okay, I've just got this amazing idea and I'm going to take that, and guess what they do? They put it into the to-do list of busyness. These are subconscious signals. What are your subconscious signals about money that you've picked up over the past, I don't know, 30 days? What's that? And you can only define it when you're reflective and quiet. You don't define this in noise. The Prophet Yeshua said that whenever a person wants to build a house or a home, you have to sit down and thoroughly strategize and connect your resourcefulness to your resources. And you have to plan with the end in mind. You want to complete the building, because he said the worst thing that can happen is that people look at you and say, you started it, but you never ended. How sad is that? The story of so much in strategic interventions in companies. Okay, so what's that idea? I want you to circle that and put that one side, because you need to do some reflective work on that, because it could be the solution, and it could be the disruptor of the market that you hold in your essence. Then the second to last horizontal, left-hand side, is I'm people-pleasing. And then on the right-hand side, I am trustworthy and I'm connected to my authenticity. So we're not dealing with opposites, we're dealing with reality. Where are you on that line? And then the last one is a horizontal line to the left is short-term thinking, short-term gain. And that's where most entrepreneurs are, and most coaches who are running their business, because we're going, next idea, next, oh, this will be great. Next opportunity, let me chase opportunities. And we're chasing opportunities at the expense of not knowing what's happening in our business in terms of our financial structure or our financial formulas. We think we're making money, but when an accountant grabs hold of our books, he's going, actually, you're in loss. You're going, how can it be? But according to the formulas, they can prove it. So short-term gain, right-hand side, is long-term wealth. A consistent, continual, connected centeredness to wealth in the now, that's creating wealth for midterm, long-term. I'm closing with this. In our agitation that we spoke of, that agitation that happens within our intelligent consciousness, that agitation that's about to create the next thought, the next feeling, the next emotion, the next question, the beginning of decision architecture, that agitation takes energy and goes through the frontal cortex, and then it goes from the prefrontal cortex to the predictive validity in my brain. The predictive validity uses ego and personality for a brief jump, like on a trampoline. It does not spend time in ego. It does not spend time in personality. It just goes pa-pump. I've got all the information I need in terms of reflection, and whoosh, it goes back into the genesis of the next thought. That's clarity. That's where you and I need to be, in a sense of centeredness. And when we are there, we can shift ourselves. So you can create a new reality. I can stay in the agitation of negativity, or I can create a brand new reality using agitation positively through a cognitive thought that is injected into my inner world discussion going, nah, I'm really not interested to go down this rabbit hole, thank you. And you begin to recreate a new reality. Because within our amazing, intelligent consciousness is creativity, inbreathed by the Creator, I believe. So we shift from fear and overthinking and self-distrust. We can shift our thinking to, I believe in the future me. And here's a secret I want to share with you now, and I close. Personality and ego say set a goal. Neuroscience says, who are you in the future? Because that's the goal. And when you discover who you are in the future and you draw from that into your present, and you begin to learn to tell ego and personality, I'm only going to reference you like a rearview mirror for that much, that size. I'm not going to give you the full windscreen. I'm going to give you that much. That's all you've got, ego, and I know you hate it. And personality, that's all I'm going to give you. Why? Because you are formed in the past. And sadly, there are people in our country, in South Africa, that are blaming the 1820 settlers and apartheid, which happened before the ANC took over, and their feet are firmly nailed in the wooden floor of the past. And they're blaming apartheid. They have been in power for 34 years, and they're still blaming apartheid. They're still blaming Jan van Riebeeck, who came to the country. They're still blaming the whites. They're still blaming whatever. And it's like you draw your energy from the past. The past is what you lost. The past is where you encountered all this loss and pain and anger. So you knock the nails in through your feet into this wooden plank of your past, and it becomes your identity. This is who we are. We are, and then you start getting people saying, this race group is important, more important than that is the implication. But we are all equal, for goodness sake. And so we cannot allow to go into the past or into the ego. Our prefrontal cortex must be our guard. And we must have a resolute somewhere within us, that one space and place where we hide and create reserve to be able to regulate and to become the best version who we are in terms of our business, our money, our work, our legitimacy, and our legacy. If I was a Roman Catholic priest, I would say, and here endeth the lesson. Thank you for sharing. Open for questions, those of you who'd like.
Wow, this was so insightful, Bill. Thank you very much. I have a couple of questions, and I wanted to request for you to elaborate a bit more about the gut feeling. Because there's a lot of information about the gut these days. You know, a lot of people come on social media and talk a lot about, you know, you need to listen to the gut, your gut feeling, and there's, you know, as some people say, there is a lot of information, but how can we discern from, what's true and what is not? So tell us about the gut feeling, please.
Elena, a lovely, lovely question. So if we interpret that within our intelligent consciousness, the flow of intelligence within our neuroplasticity, it feels like it's in the gut. So the agitation that we're getting sends a kinesthetic signal into the gut area. Now, the gut area is below our heart and below our mind. It's over here. So we should listen to it, but it's not in the gut, it's like saying the piano does not contain music.
Yeah.
But when the pianist plays, he or she creates music. And that's how our intelligent consciousness works. We create the notes in harmony, and we do that with consciousness, reflective thinking, paying attention to our patterns, regulating what we hear. And so I'm saying, yes, do please listen to your gut, but the gut, in terms of neuroplasticity, is resting in agitation, predictive validity, and creating the next thought, which on earth you need to listen to. So that's the neuroscience definition of gut.
Thank you very
Psychology
much.
uses the word gut.
Mhm. Thank you. Thank you for this. And I'm curious to find out, if you consider appropriate this question, of course, what is your view about the very popular psychometric tests out there? As you may know, these are widely used across organizations when hiring leaders. Can we trust them?
As a psychometrist, the trust factor is hidden within a psychometric formula called the Cronbach alpha. So if a test has a Cronbach alpha of, and they say 0.68, so it's 68% reliable and valid. And they say that's high. I don't know who they are, but when I got 68% at school, it wasn't high. 70 to 80 is high. So my son comes to me and he says, here's my report, and I just see red circles. And that's why teachers were given red pens so that it could focus the attention of parents on failure. And I decided one day I'm not going to play his game. I took the report, turned it around, pushed it under his nose, and I said, Champ, this is your reality. It's not mine. I'm not going to school. I'm not writing the exams. Been there, done that. Can tell you, I also hate what you hate, which is school itself. It's boring. It's not personal. But neuroscience works on the person of the person. So he says, and there was an interesting two red circles. The one was his mark and then class average, and both of them had circles. So the whole class failed maths. And he pointed that out. And I said, okay, let me share with you how this works. They are not comparing uniqueness. They are comparing a fruit salad. So how do we work on average? So everybody has given themselves a score there on the questionnaire that I've shared with you now on chasing money versus creating value. And we're going, okay, so we're more on the plus side towards creating value, whatever that number is. Whoever's on the show tonight will give us their scores. We add them up and then we divide them by how many, and that's called average. But we are ignoring the fact of the uniqueness of every one of those scores. And so one person is a pawpaw, another person is an apple, another person is a grape, another person is a cucumber, another person is an avocado, and what we've done is we've taken a little bit of everyone, put it into this bowl, and that's called fruit salad, and that's called psychological average or mean. You're comparing yourself to a bloody fruit salad, excuse my... And I looked at that and I said to my son, I want you to now look at the column that says this is my marks. It's representation of what you put into it and what you didn't. So let me ask you this question. That D that you got for maths, does that represent your personal mathematical brilliance and capability? So the moment psychological tests put us into comparison with the world average and all that, I don't care if the world average, they're going, because some of the stats are stupid. They're saying the world average is that married couples who've been married for 25 years have 2.5 orgasms a week. Here's my question. What the hell is a half an orgasm?
Exactly. Yeah.
Oh my word. Can you believe it? And they believe that they are so intelligent.
I see.
They are in academic delusion. And yeah, so, and when I change the conversation to go, measure yourself by yourself. So the measurement that everybody gave themselves on this little 5 comparison horizontal, that you measure based on, so where do I want to be? What's the longing of where I want to be? Who's the future me? Am I more on the right-hand side in my future me than I am on the left-hand side? And I hope you are. So then what do I need to do to shift towards my future me, which are all on the right-hand side? And finally, Elena, there are enough peer reviews and white papers coming out that the long-term reliability and validity and construct of psychometric tests is dwindling. So over the long term, you measure the same thing and you're going to find huge variance, even if in the same context. A lot to talk about that, but it's basically my answer. Don't judge yourself by a fruit salad.
Thank you so much.
And you
I
are not
appreciate
average. We are not average. We are freakingly unique.
cannot agree more. And I see Cynthia has a question. Cynthia, over to you.
Hello, Elena. Hello, Dr.
Hi,
Bill.
Cynthia.
It is a very, very interesting masterclass. I loved every bit of it. And my question to you is, when you say the ego is in the past and the personality is in the past is where we were born and where we were raised. So part of it is it's not within our reach. It was not something that we did. It was our parents raising us. So our past is where it's their input in our growing up until we reached a point where we have enough consciousness about who we are and what we want to change for our future self. So to what extent do you feel that even though we are aware of the things that we want to change and the future self that we want to become, to what extent do you feel that our past has a toll on who we are right now? Thank you.
Cynthia, what a lovely, well thought out and structured inquiry. Here's what I know. The past and the ego will not operate if we do not have an intelligent consciousness. The voice of the past and the voice of the ego that have been formulated in the past are wired brain paths that have been connected, called the past, and it has given to us a believability and a sense of structure and a sense of reference within that personality, and they are well wired. But I argue that you need to give yourself the liberty to be liberated from your past and ego and say thank you for that, honor that. Don't try and fight it, just honor it. But go, I'm creating for myself a new version of my personality or a new version, God forbid, of my ego. But I'm creating it with intentionality and awareness and consciousness resolve and meaning and reflection and prefrontal cortex engagement with clarity and focus. So my past is simply a rearview mirror of reflection. I am not a prisoner of my past. I'm a pioneer of my future. And I come with the past, of course I do. But I'm a pioneer of my future, and I choose to thrive towards my best version, which so inside my intelligent consciousness is my essence. It knows my yearnings. When we say to people, I know that I don't know, then you're working with your yearning. Because inside what I don't know, there is, in my essence, and my intelligent consciousness knows exactly what my future me must look like. But we don't go there in reflection. We stay in the busyness. But ego and personality could never have been formed. It's not a separate program. Psychology says it's a separate program. I say it's not. Psychology, everything that you are in psychology, whichever box you want to put yourself into, is a brain-wired program that's been myelinated. There's no other place where your personality can be expressed or be. It's all in the brain wiring. You cannot have a separate program that is parallel and different from our neuroplasticity, where our next thoughts are being created.
This is very insightful. Thank you. Dr. Price, I wanted to inquire, how can the audience stay in contact with you?
If they visualize that my email, so the website, we've taken it down because I'm now reinventing a whole lot of things. So my email is, when you look at me on the screen, the first word Bill at small caps DR middle hyphen, not lower hyphen, middle hyphen DR billprice.online. Bill at dr-billprice.online.
I've just typed it in the chat box. Yeah,
Perfect.
I believe I have it right. Great.
So when you see me on the screen, that's the email. It's me, and then it's got doctor, and it's got me again, and I'm online.
Great. All right. Well, if there are no other inquiries, we can wrap up for the day. It's been incredibly insightful listening to you, Dr. Price.
Thank you.
Thank you so much for being part of our Neurodiversity Masterclass series today. It's such a delight to close this day with your masterclass. And I look forward to the pleasure of hosting you again in the near future. Thank you so much.